What's a real-life glitch you've experienced that you still can't explain? In my parents' bedroom was this really large master closet. It was technically just one closet, but it had two doors going into it. Between the two doors was a high shelf and a hanging rod for clothes. So it functioned like two separate walk-in closets, but you could walk from one to the other by ducking under any clothes hung in the middle. One night she was in her side of the closet and she saw through the gap between the shelf and the clothes rod my dad walk into his side of the closet. She heard the metal coat hangers sliding as he looked for something to wear and saw the clothes in the middle sway as they were brushed from the other side. From her side of the closet she started talking to him about something random. Then she heard the bathroom door open. She poked her head out of the closet to see my dad clearly just emerging from the shower. Walked to look into his side of the closet and nothing. And up until the moment she poked her head out to look at the bathroom door, she will swear to you she could still see my dad in that closet. I forgot about this until I read this post, but it's something I still don't understand. It was summer and my grandfather, grandmother, mom and I were working in the garden. It's pretty big and there is a lot of grass to be mowed and stuff like that. After all the work my mom would always ask me to get some soda because everyone was thirsty from working. It was in the evening, but still pretty warm. After everyone had their soda, my mom asked me to put it back in the fridge which was in the basement. Used as a living area, only a small part is storage. So I go to the basement and please note. The room with the fridge is like 20-30 sec from the exit and you have to pass two doors with those flappy anti-fly curtains. I put the soda in the fridge, close the fridge and walk out. Seems normal, right? Except I had to do this 3 times. The soda kept reappearing whenever I put it in the fridge and turned my back on it. Everyone was outside and there was only one bottle of soda in the room. To this day, I am still confused over what happened. There have probably been more moments like this, but this is the one I remember the most. This happened about 6 years ago. Myself and 3 other friends went to a concert at the biggest venue in Mexico City. One of my friends is a woman. This is important for the story. So, the concert ended and we agreed on a meet-a-point outside the venue so we could pick a cab and leave together. There were about 100k people there, so we inevitably got separated, so we went to the meet-a-point. We waited for my friend for about 15 minutes when we started to get worried, so we started calling her phone. However, due to the sheer amount of people present at the venue trying to make phone calls, the lines get congested and the calls won't go out or they won't be received, so we started to get really worried. After another 10 minutes trying to call her, I get a phone call from her. She sounded extremely gloomy and sad. She said, "Hey Sebas Visu, I'm alright, I'm already at my place, everything is okay." I got immediately freaked out as this was impossible. She lived 2 hours away and not even an hour had gone by. We get super freaked out and try to call her and start flagging some cops down, cause being Mexico City I thought she had been kidnapped. Then, 30 seconds after the call she comes out of the crowd looking as chilled as she could possibly look. I yell at her, telling her what the hell was wrong with her, etc. etc. The thing is she looked so surprised at this. She denies having made any phone calls. She tried, but couldn't get a signal. We don't believe her so we look at her phone and there was no record of the call having been made. After this I take my phone to show her the call and there was no record of the call having been received either. To this day I have no idea what happened because the voice on the other end of the phone was hers and she knew details about me and my name. Went out of state to a casino with my family. The casino had 2 floors, it kind of looked like a mall. You could see the top floor just by looking up and you got to the top floor by using an escalator. The bathroom was on the top floor and my mom went to the bathroom alone. She was gone for about 15 minutes before I went looking for her. I checked the restroom and she wasn't in there. The rest of my family, 5 people, spread out to look for her and met back by the escalator and no one could find her. I was holding her phone for her so I couldn't call her. I saw a suspicious looking man standing by the ladies' room the entire time we were looking and I thought maybe he killed her and stuffed her in the trash or maybe he killed her in the men's room. I'm irrational when I'm in panic mode, so I checked there too. Finally after another few minutes my mom comes down the escalator looking zoned out. I was so relieved to see her. She was tripping out because she said she took the escalator and it took her to another building across the street and then back to where we were even though she got on the right escalator. I swear there was only 2, one going up and another going down. The crazy part was that the buildings weren't even connected at all. I was in college and home for break or some holiday. My dad was out at the grocery store picking up several last-minute items while my mom is wrapping up her beauty routine. I'm ready to go, sitting at our kitchen table scrolling through my phone. To set the scene, my position at our kitchen table looks out the back door down the steps to our driveway with garages in the basement. I hear a rumbling below me in the garage and think I must have missed my dad pulling in. I finish up my phone browsing and hear grocery bags crinkling behind me down the basement stairs, so I get up and start heading down to help him unload, and as I turn the corner there is no movement, no sound. And no grocery bag sitting by the door waiting to be carried upstairs. So I go open the garage door and his side is empty. I just closed the door and headed back to my seat at the table. As I sit back down, my dad's truck whips in the driveway and starts backing towards the garage. I wait, hear the grocery bags, and head downstairs. "Hey Dad, need some help?" When I was young, maybe 7, after my mom got a divorce from my dad, we lived in this creepy apartment. I think kids have a sense about creepy shit, and I think I knew from the start that something was off about this apartment. Little backstory, and probably part of why it always creeped me out, my mom got a really good deal on it because she agreed to fix it up a little. Nothing crazy, just basically cleaning out the stuff the old tenant had left and slapping some fresh paint on the walls. The previous tenant had vanished one day. The owner said that rent time came and went and the tenant never paid, so after calling numerous times they finally went into the apartment and the tenant was gone, but left all of their stuff. So the way this apartment was set up, when you entered the front door, a stairway was immediately to your left, a door to a bedroom immediately to your right, and then straight ahead was a hallway with an open living room and kitchen at the end. So if you're standing in the doorway, you can see into the bedroom, up the stairs, and into the living room. Once you enter the living room, you can see the full kitchen. One day, I was playing a computer game in the downstairs bedroom and started to get hungry. I walked out of the bedroom, calling for my mom as I walked down the hallway. No answer. When I rounded the corner into the kitchen, she wasn't there. I went back down the hallway and started up the stairs, but as I was about halfway up I felt a really creepy feeling and decided to go back down the stairs, all the while, still calling for her. At the bottom of the stairs, I opened the front door and called for her with no response, went back down the hall to open the sliding glass back door. This was an apartment complex, so we had no backyard, just a little deck, and nothing. Panicking, I went back down the hall towards the original bedroom I was in, trying to figure out what to do. I decided to grab the phone to call someone, walked back down the hall to get it, and there stands my mother, cooking dinner in the kitchen. When I asked her where she'd been, she said she'd been there the whole time. I asked why she didn't answer when I was calling for her, or if she saw me opening the back door, and she said no. It's been probably about 15 or so years and I still think about this incident periodically. That apartment was creepy as fuck. Like the day we moved out, we found this hidden room type thing, disguised by a vent cover that we'd never seen in the 2 years we lived there. I had recurring nightmares of the same man, and there were a few times our front door either wouldn't lock or we'd get up in the morning to it standing open. So glad we didn't live there for longer than we had to. I had an abusive childhood. One time, in middle school, I had a friend over. A very rare occurrence for me. My friend and I were about to enter the house and go up to my room. Now the door we were going through connected to the laundry room, which has the washer dryer like right in front of the door, so if you are doing laundry, sometimes the door will hit you. I had a premonition. Nothing else to call it. I put my hand on the door handle, and in a premonition of the exact words and way my stepmother would scream at me the moment I opened the door, I turned to my friend and said, "When I open this door, my mom will be there and she will be very upset." He looked super confused, but sure enough, I opened the door and she yelled and screamed at me exactly the way I saw, and then we both ran up to my room. I don't believe in the supernatural, religion, the occult, ghosts, or anything like that at all. But anytime I start to get 100% atheistic neckbeard in my own head, I remember that and it makes me think. It's not bulletproof because she had yelled at me for that several times, but I'll never forget the absolute certainty I had at that moment of what exactly was about to happen. I've never been more certain of anything in my life since. Weirded my friend out too. Will never understand this for as long as I live. In high school I liked to wake up early in the mornings, so I'd have time to eat breakfast, watch TV, maybe do some last-minute homework, and relax before I'd begin my day. I always set my alarm at 6 a.m. So that morning as usual my phone alarm went off. I grabbed my phone to turn it off. I distinctly remember reading a text message from a friend. Who was an early riser like me, asking me did I want to grab fried rice later that night with the rest of our friends. He sent this at 5:39 a.m. It was still September, so the sun was always up at this hour. I got out of bed and immediately hopped in the shower. When I got out I headed down to the kitchen to brew coffee and make some breakfast. While I was waiting on the coffee pot to heat up I ran back to my room to grab my phone. When I looked down at my phone I just about croaked. The time on the phone read 3:30 a.m. To make matters worse I looked outside and the sun wasn't even up yet. What's even weirder was I never had even received that text from my friend. I just sat there bewildered and frustrated, running through the chain of events from that morning over and over again. I eventually made my way back to the kitchen. Seeing that I was wide awake now I didn't need coffee anymore. I stayed up the rest of the morning not even trying to attempt sleep again. Later that morning something even stranger happened. At 5:39 a.m. I received that text message from my friend. I've spent a lot of time over the years trying to decipher the events from that morning. All I know is that somehow I woke up in the future and my shower took me back to the present. Can anyone relate to this? I used to have these very vivid dreams that were all part of an overall story. They took place in an alternate universe with magic and demons and shit. Myself and some friends. These people weren't real, mind you, were freedom fighters in the war. The dreams were never in order and I wrote them down after waking up, figuring out where they placed on the timeline by taking note of particular details. For instance, in some of the dreams I was always alone and was incredibly powerful. In others I was pretty much just an average kid and had all those friends around me as we snuck around trying to rescue POWs. One night I had particularly dark dream where one of my friends, his name was Luke, was sitting on a rooftop threatening to jump. I went up there to try and talk him out of it and we ended up having a long conversation about how he couldn't see the point in fighting anymore. Now that she's dead. So this was pretty surprising, the she that was being referred to was his girlfriend Maddie. In the later dreams in the timeline she was never there, so this sort of explained why she disappeared from the dreams. That was in the Christmas break in 2009. When school started in 2010, I met Maddie for the first time when she started at my school. She looked exactly the same, had the same laugh, same mannerisms and everything. I definitely had never met her before, and yet there she was. Not just alive, but actually fucking real. Once in college, some friends and I drove out of the city and down a country road in a secluded area so we could smoke pot and cruise around. Didn't really have a secure place to smoke near campus, and we were dumb enough to think it was safer in a moving vehicle. So after nightfall, we are on our way headed back to town and it seems out of nowhere we are in this massive traffic jam on this country road. There are tons of cars in front of us and even cars trying to pass on the shoulder. Cars were racing past going the other way. Which really didn't lead anywhere. There just seemed to be a kind of pandemonium, like we were driving around a sports stadium after a game. There were no lights from a police car or fire truck. No evidence of a crash. Nothing. We were literally screaming because it was so weird. It all came out of nowhere. It was a 2-lane road that didn't lead to anywhere, yet there were tons of cars jammed up. Then it just seemed like all the cars were gone. The traffic let up and we were cruising along again, but I don't remember seeing cars in front of us or behind anymore. It was like we were alone on the road. We lost it and couldn't stop talking about it for like a week. I'd like to say it was a glitch, but it's probably because we were smoking some good stuff. When I was younger I had a fantastic relationship with my paternal grandfather. From as early as I can remember to being 12 to 13 I would go to my grandparents' house every Friday or after nursery school or whatever and he would always drive me home, about 10 minutes, to my parents'. I loved the drives home, we'd often take longer routes, long cuts, to spend more time in the car. For the longest time he always had this one CD in the car, it was a Now That's What I Call Music or maybe a similar brand. One song that stood out was Cyndi Lauper Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. We loved that song so much, always had it playing once or twice on the drive home, and despite me being a preteen boy and he old Yorkshireman, it became our favorite song. Fast forwards a few years, I'm 13 or 14 and on holiday abroad with my parents, we spent pretty much the entire time sat by the pool at the hotel which played the same music. This hotel had one playlist of songs, maybe 20 to 25 tracks long. We could always predict what the next song would be, it became a bit of a joke between the family that the music was so terrible. Whilst we're away, Granddad was taken into hospital, he'd not been a well man for as long as I can remember, and this would be the last time he went to hospital. When things got bad, my dad got the phone call to come home and see him before he passes, and he does just that. I stayed at the hotel for the rest of the holiday with my sister and mother, who shielded us well from what was going on, but we still knew. There was a specific phone call that my dad made to my mum via the hotel reception that I identified as being the one straight after my grandfather passed. I was sitting on a bench with my sister as my mother spoke. Then, the next song that played was, of course, Girls Just Wanna Have Fun, not being part of the repeating playlist or ever being heard play in the last 7 days. There it was. After it ended, the music went back to the shitty playlist. Never really shared this story before. It's what's led me to fully believe the universe is interactive and fluid, and nothing is really real. The more I think about it, the stranger it gets. That song also has a habit of creeping up at strange times too. I was in high school and I had had a vivid dream. I was in a white ball gown type dress being led to my execution. I was to be drowned. I will never forget the dream because the emotions I felt were so conflicted. The guy leading me to my death stopped and put a hand on my arm and said in the most sincere voice, "It's not your fault. What happened wasn't your fault. What you are doing is brave, but this wasn't your fault." I was put to death and woke up gasping for breath. I panicked because every glass in my room was full of water and I was completely drenched from head to toe. I changed clothes and sheets and chalked it up to sleepwalking, sleep drinking, and tried to go back to sleep. Why, I will never forget it. The next day at school I was sitting at lunch and my now husband friend sat next to me and suddenly grabbed my arm and said, "Whatever happened, it wasn't your fault." I just looked at him confused and asked what he was talking about. He had no idea. Just said that it seemed like the right thing to say. To this day I am still weirded out by it. My husband doesn't remember it. I had a weird one recently where it felt as if I had slightly time traveled. I was watching an interview on YouTube of a politician. It was on an issue I had very little knowledge on by a person I had no prior knowledge of. Then during the interview it kind of started again, where the video I was watching went back in time by about 2 minutes. I was watching this. I felt, wow, I've heard all this before. Then I assumed it was an intense déjà vu. But then I passed the video and word for word repeated everything he was about to say next. I checked the timeline of the video and I had not rewound it or seen it again. I rewound the same video to see if the footage had just been looped or something. But it hadn't. It was as if I quickly peered into the future to see the video, then watched it again. It was really strange. One day, I was driving with my son and daughter. Son was in a car seat all the way in the back of my van. Daughter was in the middle. I know my son had boots on because there was no snow on the ground, so I tried to put his shoes on and he screamed bloody murder until he got boots. We went directly to the van. When we got to our destination, a grocery store less than 10 minutes away, he no longer had boots on. Now, keep in mind that the windows in the back of my van don't open at all. Neither do the windows in the middle. Only the ones in the front, and since it was winter I definitely didn't open those. After a quick search in the parking lot with no results, we obviously had to go back home cause he couldn't walk around the store in socks. When we got back home, I searched the car properly. After about 20 minutes, it wasn't even about managing to get to the grocery store. It was the principle of the thing. I was going to find those goddamn boots. I removed car seats and entire seats from the van. I searched every possible space I could access, let alone my strapped-in 3-year-old. I even searched everywhere in between the spot I put his boots on and the car. I never found those goddamn fucking boots. In high school I did archery, and one day at shooting practice one of the new kids shot a bullseye exactly. Dead center. This isn't that remarkable. You fire enough arrows, sooner or later one of them will be a bullseye. But everyone was being nice and congratulating him. Suddenly, a voice in my head, which sounded like me but didn't feel like me, said, "Yeah, but Lynn's about to do the same thing." And I could see in my mind's eye, Lynn firing an arrow, it flying through the air and hitting a dead center bullseye. Then, maybe 3 or 4 seconds later, I watch as Lynn fires an arrow and it flies in exactly the trajectory I had seen in my head and lands with a thwack. Bullseye. Everyone is over congratulating Lynn now. She was new too, and I'm standing off to the side wondering what the fuck just happened. It happened one more time a month or 2 later too. I saw something happen in my head exactly as it did a few seconds later. I've forgotten the details of the second time though, and it's never happened since. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please drop a like, and to stay up to date with my latest videos, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel by clicking the button under this video.